Mojave Desert, Berkeley, Seattle Times, Pulitzer Prize.
Welcome to the Exploring Washington State podcast. Here's your host, Scott Cowan.
All right, welcome back to the Exploring Washington State podcast. My guest today is Lex Vaughn of the Needling. Lex, thanks for taking some time this morning, because we're recording this in the morning for those of you that care, to be a guest on this episode. Welcome.
Glad to be here. So for those that don't know about the Needling, and the byline is Seattle's only real fake news.
Mm-hmm. So Lex, when we were talking yesterday, I'm gonna give a really quick backstory of you. Mojave Desert, Berkeley, Seattle Times, Pulitzer Prize.
Yeah. Okay. It's part of the reason I like this. It's so hard for me to summarize my life. It's been all over the place. You can just literally. Yeah.
I mean, those are all very interesting nuggets that we could unpack. We're going to skip the Mojave Desert. Mm-hmm. You went to Berkeley for journalism. Mm-hmm. After Berkeley, so I'm a little confused on the bio here. Did you come to Seattle first, or did you work for the LA Times first?
I worked for the LA Times on a fellowship in DC. And then I got a job at the Seattle Times.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then you became a reporter for the Seattle Times, telling mm-hmm. real news, documenting real news, real stories. And you were part of a group that won a Pulitzer for the landslide. Yeah.
Coverage of the Oso landslide. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Before we get into satire and all that, let's just talk. What was it like for you to be, because you were up there for quite a bit of time, mm-hmm. correct? You were kind of, dare I say, embedded, but I don't know what the right word is.
Yeah.
What was that like to have to report on that story from your side of the equation? Like, you had to turn out content. Mm-hmm. What's it like being a reporter covering a fairly significant, event like that?
I mean, there's a lot of different ways to think of it, like professional and personal. And that definitely had an impact on me, both professionally and personally, to cover that. Professionally, I felt like I was ready for it, and we obviously were. It ended up resulting in a Pulitzer Prize. Mm-hmm. There were other, like breaking news stories I had, covered before that. And every time I did that, it's like I was really like sharpening my skills for like, okay, well, if there isn't reception or if there isn't this, how do I still get information back to the office or tweet something out so people get, news faster or whatever. So I felt good, about the reporting there and everything. But then on a personal level, covering stuff like that is so complex because it's like, well, it's surreal. It's always surreal. And then on the one hand, it's like tragic and heartbreaking. And on the other, you end up witnessing like the best of people. And then again, that's like heartbreaking because like you see people do their best, be there for their community, all day, whatever is needed. And you're just like, why isn't it like this all the time? If people could just be as good as they are right now, most of the time, wow. So, I was there for 2 weeks and, did some follow-up reporting and definitely am emotionally attached to that area.
Okay.
Yeah. Cause of the coverage there.
So humor me. This question is, me, a Pulitzer Prize. How do they go about selecting the winners? Did the Seattle Times submit the content to the organization, or did how does that process work? Do you know?
Yeah, the newspaper submits I think a packet for submission. And the funny thing is is something that was kind of naive about me during my journalism career is I really came at it from a public service angle. Like it was not for me. Like I felt like I like having a profession where I'm doing a public good. I'm getting the truth out there. I'm uncovering corruption or delivering, really important news as fast as I can. And so the entire time I was a reporter, like I never submitted like my work for awards. Like no one told me like you have to do that. So the only awards I have on my resume are like these really big awards that other people submitted for, like a Pulitzer Prize, which is kind of the only one you need. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty big. That's pretty big. You ever going to submit some stuff from the Needling for a Pulitzer? Just because you should, just to kind of like send it in.
Well, I think I don't know exactly. I mean, I don't think the Onion has ever gotten a Pulitzer, so the chances
doesn't mean
that
you shouldn't
the
try.
Needling is
It doesn't mean you shouldn't try. I mean, you could think about that. Think of the content.
The Onion had a funny campaign where they attempted to get a Pulitzer.
Okay,
so
all right.
It's a little bit of a joke, but honestly, it's like I do really value satire. It's part of why I do it. It's fun, it's funny, it's entertaining, but I mean, I think it does something important, especially when people are like overwhelmed by news cycles. They're just tired, just like, it's kind of helpful to have just like another way to stay updated or think about what's going on in the world, that offers, I don't know. At least a little bit of entertainment along with it, so you're not just completely depleted.
I think that's like we said before we quote unquote hit record was the one about cats can't pass COVID, but they would if they could. Mm-hmm. Very funny, but it does make you kind of go, could be believable too. I mean. I think part of what like comedy does in general is like, the reality is like, every single person is living with a lot of like really dark realities all the time. Like, oh my God, like my pet probably would eat me, like, or what, just all kinds of little things like that. And comedy just helps you kind of like cope with it. You're like, yeah, it's weird, it's dark, but it is funny. It's also funny. Because it's absurd. It's like, or is it? There's just this pause. So, what was the spark that had you start the Needling?
Like I started this, like really got the ball rolling in like 2017, 2018. We launched at the end of 2018. Ostensibly that's how long I've been working on this, but like I grew up with a dad that had like a really great sense of humor and exposed me to a lot of, I think, pretty like adult humor, honestly, from like a young age. Okay. So like I was kind of like primed for this kind of humor for a while. Loved it, just love this kind of comedy. But yeah, part of it is while I was a reporter at the Seattle Times and LA Times and all these other places, you do your best to be an objective reporter. And of course there's limits to that. Like no human is completely unbiased, but
right.
With like traditional journalism, you are making your best effort to tell a balanced story. So people can come up with their own, conclusions as a reader or whatever. So you do your best to do that. But meanwhile, I mean, you are a person, has your own opinions, your own thoughts. And it's like, I think while I was a reporter, I was like suppressing that so much that it kind of built up this very imaginative portion of my head where it's like, okay, I can't put this in the story, but this is what I'm really thinking. And it would be kind of like a satirical or fantastical way of telling the story that I'm, telling in a more neutral, boring way from the newspaper.
I have to ask because this is how I interpret how I would be doing this. My understanding of reporting is that as the reporter, you're typically not writing the headline. Is that accurate?
True. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of people don't get that. They get mad at the headline. It's like, I didn't write write it, man. That's a copy editor. She's like 80 years old.
Did you ever? Did you ever like want to submit some, satirical headlines as just some suggestions for you?
No. Copy desk was I don't know. It's probably they're probably different now, but they were a weird bunch when I was there.
All right. See, I would be the one going, hey, here's a couple ideas. Let's just try this, knowing that they wouldn't do it. But,
they don't want to be told. They don't want to be told. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, that job would be no
So
fun.
you are at their mercy, headline wise. Yeah.
That's got to be frustrating if you, I would think, because you might come at an article, your position is, here's your kind of view of it. And then the headline's like way over here.
Yeah.
And totally distorted that. Like you said, people get mad at the headline.
Yeah. I never had like a huge, blow up on any of my articles, but like I've witnessed that and felt bad for other reporters where people don't even read the article and they're like, I see this headline and I see a byline. Get her. It's like, she didn't write it.
Right.
Poor thing.
Yeah. The reporters being skewered on social media for.
Yeah. And like no one gets it, like only journalists are like, oh man, that
sucks. Okay. So in 2017, 2018, you started to get this idea. But before I go there, you said your dad was a funny guy, or he's
alive.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, okay. Yeah, sorry.
Just talking about my childhood in past tense. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Dad. What was he exposing you to? What were some of the things you grew up around?
Mad Magazine. So definitely, grew up on Mad Magazine, and that's so easy for a child to appreciate because, I mean, a lot of it was just visual. Like you didn't even know how to read yet. You could just sift through that thing and be like, "What?" And then, like, honestly, when I think about some of the cartoons that were on TV, I'm like, that was like very adult. Like when I was a kid, Nickelodeon had some pretty mature stuff. Like if I look back at like Ren and Stimpy, like, man, this is absurd and dark. I mean, good on Nickelodeon for not like, treating children like they're, idiots. You can't take some dark humor, but like it surprises me that cartoon was on Nickelodeon. But yeah, grew up with a lot of like absurd stuff like that. And then I think a little bit later, found out about the Onion, and sometimes we had like print editions of the Onion to look at. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean, when you think about it, go back to like the old Looney Tunes cartoons were not exactly.
Yeah. Thank God. I'm so glad I didn't. I got to see some cartoons like that weren't like, overly kid proofed. I don't know.
Right. Right. Yeah. Just that weren't so scrubbed of.
Yeah.
Layers of humor.
Yeah.
Just my kids. I'll throw my son under the bus. As a young child, Barney.
No. I was like a Mr. Rogers, and
I would sit there with him and just like want to take a fork and stab my eyes out because I couldn't. There was just nothing about Barney that I could find at all. As a well, age-wise adult, mentally no, but it was just, oh my God, how anyway. So you were exposed to this. You're doing the Seattle Times. You start to have this inkling to do the needling. And what is the needling the way it is today, the way you envisioned it, or has it morphed?
It's mostly what I envisioned. Like, like it is modeled like after the Onion. Like I listened and read to a lot of material about how the Onion works. Like not just like, looking at the content that they put out there, but how do they make the content? Like how do they narrow down the headlines and all that stuff? So I spent some time researching that, and I was like, that makes sense. And so we apply a lot of that to the needling, but we're also like flexible, like over time, it's like we find how we're unique or how we're going to do it differently. Like the Onion, is, obviously amazing, but they have like very much stuck to their guns about like their neutrality, and they don't engage with the audience. Because we're local, we do have a little bit more fun engaging with our audience and doing quizzes and like interactive stuff, especially on Instagram. Every different social media platform has like different allowances for what you can do, but I think we probably have the most fun on like Instagram because of the Insta stories and how you can have questions and all this different kind of engagement.
Have you ever tried to put the needling on LinkedIn?
You know what? I did.
I like that. Oh,
yeah. Just the thought of LinkedIn makes me do that.
Well, I just think it would be.
But I actually did put it on the Needling so I could, or put it on LinkedIn so I could have it on my resume there.
Well, but I'm wondering, like, for example, like the one I've got up on my other monitor here is this. The headline is Jeff Bezos just wondering if he can still write off McKinsey's charitable donations. Mm-hmm. And it's just, hashtag Amazon and throw that on and throw that on LinkedIn and just see what happens. I just see what people, I don't know. I could imagine that going and being very divisive. Actually, I think some people would find it absolutely hysterical, and you might grow your audience because they weren't aware. On the other hand, people would probably believe it and be offended, and then the comment section would just crash the servers.
Yeah,
not a bad idea.
Yeah, we do a lot of Amazon content naturally, and we always have a lot of Amazon headlines. So the trouble really is like in like being pickier about those headlines. Like, let's only publish an Amazon headline if it's like a really good headline.
You're in a target-rich environment.
Yeah, where this is their home base, so like that's our responsibility. We gotta skewer them on the regular.
This could go in so many ways. So let me ask you this then: what has anyone ever been like aggressively offended by something you have published?
Sure, and like. I'm completely fine with people not liking our content. Because I'm not trying to make it palatable to everyone, Right. So whenever people don't like there's a difference between like, we try to be very thoughtful about everything that we publish, because I think there's a fine line between comedy and bullying, and that difference is punching up. You want to make sure that the thing you're making fun of, has got it coming, We're not gonna make fun of people that are already struggling. Like, that's not funny. That's just bullying.
Okay. So I like the way you describe that. Punching up. Okay.
So that's always our intent. And I like to feel good in my gut and my heart, like, are you good with this? Are you good with it before you publish? And if I do that gut check before I publish, I'm like, then I don't care what happens later. Unless like sometimes people point out something where I'm just like, okay, I don't know. I guess I didn't think about that. So I'll factor that in, because the intention of every post is to entertain and to provide comfort, to people who are, maybe being oppressed or,
right.
bullied around by, some people who suck.
Have you ever had to retract anything? Did you ever choose to, like, when somebody point something out to you in a different light and you're like, oh, did that cause anything like that?
We've never done like a retraction based on people being offended. We do retract things sometimes just because they bomb. It's like, all right, the people have spoken. This never happened. And honestly, to me, that's the proof. Like, if something's bad, it's not like gonna be, oh, people left a mean comment. It's gonna be like, no one's gonna like comments. They're gonna be like, I'm just gonna act like I didn't see it. Like, okay, those are people who love us, who are like, I don't know about that one.
Okay,
all right. And I'm like, I get that feedback pretty fast, so I'm like, all right, something's not working. Pull it back.
So can you I put you on the spot. Share one that you thought would have been, and I'll put you like something you wrote that you thought would have been good or funny or both. And then the audience, the crickets appeared and you just said, ooh, how did I miss that?
Part of what happens is like, honestly, it happens pretty rarely that we pull anything down, because we have a process for sifting through headlines, and we got like a group of contributors who vote on the headlines. Oh, okay. And you get a pretty good sense of what's working before we publish it. So it's really rare that we publish anything that isn't at least pretty good, at least okay. Usually the fumble is when I'm I don't know, somebody came up with this headline and we didn't have the chance to put it through that process, and we're I don't know, I think maybe it does work. And then you publish it, you're I don't know,
Nope.
You got to go through the process.
Okay.
I will say maybe one example is yesterday. I came up with one on the fly, I'll admit.
Recent.
And I didn't take it down.
Okay.
But it didn't hit like I wanted it to. And I think it's probably because it's a little bit too niche or something for reporters and meteorologists. So the headline, and this is probably just funnier to me because of my experience as a reporter. Interrogation of local meteorologist about chances of white Christmas enters day 5. So I wrote that one because it's this time of year. I remember when I was at the Seattle Times, it was multiple times a day they wanted a reporter calling up some poor meteorologist at the National Weather Service, asking is there gonna be snow yet on Christmas? Do we know yet? And these poor meteorologists, I would apologize if I had to call them before I even said anything. I'm I know you're going insane, but I am being told I have to call you. And they're the information's all on the internet, man. And I'm I don't know. They want me to call you. Get that straight from your mouth update. Is it gonna snow yet? So, yeah. I left it up, and there's a certain portion of people, I think, that have experience in journalism and weather reporting for whatever reason.
Sure.
who like that piece, but I don't know if it was for everyone.
I think, the absurdity of it in Seattle. I spent many, many years living on the West Side, and I can't really remember a whole lot of Christmases that we had snow.
Yeah, so the odds are it's not going to snow. So,
exactly.
To me, the rational thing is assume it's not going to snow.
Right.
If it is, I don't know, you'll hear about it. You'll see it.
Right. They'll call us. We don't need to call them. They'll call us.
But at least when I was at the Seattle Times, it's there were just some kind of crazy editors that wanted you to call the weather station on an almost hourly basis, and I'd be the information is on the internet. It's right here. This is the same thing they're looking at.
And it's 65 it's 65 degrees outside right now. It's not going to snow. It's just not. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. That was probably just processing my own reporting trauma on that one.
And I'm on Twitter right now, and I see that the Seattle Police Department swept another homeless encampment.
Yeah.
How was that one received?
And the image is a nativity scene.
Yeah.
So far pretty good.
Okay. I just wonder, in this day and age where it seems like people, how do I want to put this? Can't take a joke sometimes. I mean, that they're so easily put off by something.
Well, I will say that even though we put out a lot of edgy humor and stuff, I'm not a person that's ever gonna say, oh, it's just a joke, because honestly, I'd be dismissing this thing that I'm putting a lot of thought into. Just a joke. Jokes are powerful. Like jokes are absolutely powerful. And no joke is just a joke. Underneath the joke, there's always a point. So when people are getting upset, they are getting upset with the point underneath the joke. And that's valid.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to go two different directions right now. What's your process for creating a piece for you? Mm-hmm. What's that? Describe. I was gonna say, what's that look like? But, for accuracy, what is, what's that?
The process is.
What's the process
for us? It always starts with the headline. Like you try to, like, over the course of a week or two, come up with, I don't know, 10-ish headlines, and I'm kind of spontaneous with it. Sometimes I come up with an idea while I'm reading the news, but a lot of times it's like just while I'm doing daily life, walking around, driving, the nice thing about having comedy as a coping mechanism for life is, like, anytime anything frustrating happens, it's like, let's just turn this into material.
Okay. All right.
Somebody does something frustrating at the intersection, and I'm like writing a joke about it to deal with it instead of yelling at them. And the thing is like, and I try to teach this to, like, other contributors who, also want to write for the Needling. Most of your ideas will suck. It's okay though. Like, most of your ideas will suck. And the process is, like, you come up with 10, and if 2 or 3 are good, like, awesome. Just focus on those. That's an amazing
ratio.
Yeah. Put them through, our kind of pitch session, see how everybody feels about them. And then, you just get honest about, like, okay, well, like, this one resonated the most, so I'm going to write that one up first. And good headlines for me are always easier to write. Like, it usually takes me only like a half hour to write an article for a piece.
Oh, really?
And then, maybe I'll spend another 15, 20 minutes after a break to edit it and go, tweak things and sharpen things up. But
okay.
Yeah. It's funny. I was tired of, like, breaking news reporting, like I left that. And then I basically, like, reproduced it in satire form all on my own. It's addictive. Tight deadlines.
Okay, so you said that, underneath every joke is the truth. And so gingerbread house
or
construction.
Or my truth, whatever,
Well, no,
my
but
point
in this
view,
case, gingerbread house construction delayed by building permit backlog. That is true. That is absolute, there's anybody that's tried to pull a building permit anywhere in the state of Washington, much less just Seattle, has experienced that recently.
Yeah.
And I love the picture
everyone
of that.
knows that's true. It's just one of the most Seattle things there is.
Well, it's
maybe the whole state. I don't know.
it's spread beyond Seattle now.
Yeah.
I will say that. And then one that and I'm not seeing it right now, but one that and I'm going to paraphrase it, but I found it very sad. Not living in Seattle, I found it very sad. But that the state of Washington agreed to change its name to Seattle. There's just, when you don't live in Seattle, that sense. Really feels like, the conspiracy is that the Seattleization of
there's multiple ways to think of it. Yeah, a part of it, like, I think the original intent of that headline was just that it's like, honestly, no matter where you live in Washington, if you leave Washington or you're traveling or whatever, and people ask where you're from, you can't say, like, Washington, because people think you're talking about DC.
Everybody
so you just can't say your state name. No one gets it. It leads to, like, no, not DC, the other one. And it's just like,
you mean Seattle?
So it's almost always easier to be like, I don't know, Seattle, around Seattle, whatever. And
then almost always the next statement, it rains there a lot. It rains a lot there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You should just, like, type up your responses here.
Yeah.
These are the questions you're going to ask. There's the answers.
You could do the actually,
Yeah.
We don't get the most rainfall, but it feels like it.
It's just that it's a little every day.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, it's really not. I get in trouble if I pick on communities, so I got to be nice. Mm-hmm. So I'm on, I'm looking at the Needling. You got home, national, local news, culture, food and travel, sports, and then about you. Mm-hmm. What's your favorite category? Put you on the spot. What for you? What do you like writing about? What comes naturally to you? Is it more national or is it more local stuff?
Definitely local.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it's like a part of why I like local is like me. I mean, first of all, it's just so much more fun to post because you're gonna get so much more engagement. People relate to it. And then I think there's also, it's easier to make some of those jokes original, because it's like once you're at like a national level, it's like, you're probably not the first person to make that joke. It's a little bit harder to, say something that hasn't been said. So it's a little easier to, I think, come up with something original on a local level. Yeah, but I don't really think of my articles in terms of categories. In fact, I usually don't know what category to put things in until I post it. I'm just like, I don't know. This one, culture? I probably have to like revamp those category names anyway.
I'm reading the headlines on the sports section right now.
Mm-hmm.
Climate change officially undeniable as Mariners catch fire for the first time in ages.
Yeah.
Fan cheated of authentic Mariners experience after attending winning game.
That was very popular at the end of October.
New haunted Seattle tour guides visitors through Mariners dugout. Man, you have a target-rich environment.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so much.
It's just so much. And it's just, I'm on this news fast right now. I'm actually forcing myself not to look at the news. So
it's pretty healthy.
Yeah.
I bet it feels peaceful, especially around the holidays. That's nice to just kind of be like, I'm not doing it right now.
It feels peaceful, but then there's that, and I've never been a smoker, but what I can imagine, like, I need a cigarette.
The withdrawal.
Yeah, I'm going to white knuckle through it. I'm like, I'm bored. I go, I'll check the.
Yeah.
Macklemore's new clothing line already available in thrift shop down the road.
Yeah. Sometimes there's like a really obvious one after you see the news. You're like, all right.
Well, have you seen his clothing line?
Yeah, and I actually think it's nice. I think, I mean, for what's in style right now, I think they did a good job. But it's just, it's strange for him to, be the one selling $80 polo shirts when
and $160 slacks.
When the hit song, like the thing that made him what he is a whole song about shopping at Goodwill, and like, you don't need that designer brand. Right.
Yeah.
Now he's like, well,
maybe you do.
Things
It's
change.
my designer
Things
brand. I've moved on. Santa to leave lumps of West Seattle Bridge in naughty kids' stockings. So my question is that just in Seattle or is that globally? Is Santa going to deliver West Seattle? Is it more environmentally friendly to leave construction debris than coal?
Well, Santa, according to the story that I read, is just, trying to be, more environmentally conscious. And, so for everyone who's kind of like against coal, especially around here in the Pacific Northwest, Santa's just trying to please both the parents there, be, environmentally friendly and let their kids know that they suck.
Yeah, little Timmy's still doing bad, but we don't want to harm the environment.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. What direction do you see the Needling? Where are you going to go with it? Do you have a roadmap? Is there a what?
Not necessarily. But I do think this next year I'll revamp a podcast. But I just I went.
You made fun of podcasts too.
I just went. I like probably overthought it this last year. Like initially, my idea for a Needling podcast was like skit form, sort of thing. But I mean, it's so hard to do that. Like, it's so hard to like write that, produce that, especially like a weekly basis. So, I thought, yeah, like honestly, most podcasts that people want to listen to anyway are interviews. Like I love podcasts, and most of the podcasts I listen to are interviews. So I think I'll probably incorporate more of an interview format. And then I've been undecided on what kind of host to be. Part of me wants, I think I would prefer being kind of like an old school Stephen Colbert, like just put on like an arrogant kind of persona and like, interview people with that fake fictional, like arrogant reporter kind of personality. But I don't know if I don't know if I have the energy to be that much of an actress. So I might just end up being more of myself, and we'll see. I'm feeling that out.
So, for example, would you be interviewing the Fremont Troll?
Yeah.
Would that be something you would do?
It's like I've been thinking about like, when I think about like who's hosted the Daily Show, like Jon Stewart or Trevor Noah, they have a blend of like being themselves and also playing along with the skit. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I could do more of that kind of thing. Maybe that'll be a little bit easier for me to pull off.
So throughout our entire conversation, you've referenced stand-up comedians. Mm-hmm. You just sprinkle them into your answers. Mm-hmm. Do you have like who do you really like currently that's out there? is there,
Yeah. I just saw Taylor Tomlinson in Austin, Texas. I love her so much that like I have like a group of friends that also like her from across the country. Like we know of each other because of a podcast she used to host. She's got like a special that came out at the beginning of the pandemic. I'm sure she didn't plan it that way, but it ended up working out for her. It's called Quarter Life Crisis on Netflix. And I think she's like very young, but oh my God, she's already like incredibly funny. And we saw her just, riffing with the audience in Austin. And it was just like, I can't believe she's just like that funny off the cuff. So if you haven't heard of Taylor Tomlinson, like I swear to God you will at some point.
Okay, no, I have not.
She's very funny. Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah, there's such a long list. It's like, making me choose. Michelle Wolf. She was the last comedian I saw before the pandemic. And then I saw Daniel Sloss here in November. Yeah. So
who haven't you seen that you'd like to see? Like who would be like whose material you'd both A, enjoy and B, probably want to, study, if you will?
I have to say, Bill Burr would be so cool to see live. Because I think he's one of like I think he's like an elder statesman now. He's up there now as one of the best alive. His specials are great. He's super sharp. I love the tightrope he walks. He kind of like on purpose kind of throws himself into a ditch in his, routine. And it's like his job as a comedian to dig himself back out. And I think he's just so good at it because I will get pissed off at him and then end up kind of squinting my eyes later like, all right, you live to see another day, Bill Burr. All right. But I got my eye on you.
Okay. And do you find you're taking, I'm guessing, this is me guessing, and I could be completely wrong and you're going to tell me, But do you find stand-up to be instructional and helpful in crafting written satire?
I think what I've learned, like over the last few years, is that a lot of my favorite stand-up comedians are good writers. So I don't know if I would ever be a good stand-up comedian because I don't have like performance chops, really. I think I'm more comfortable as a writer. But I listen to a lot of like comedy podcasts too, and learn about a lot of my favorite comedians, and a lot of them, they may seem like very smooth and natural on stage, like they're just having a conversation with you, but wow, I mean, they've done a lot of work. They wrote a lot of really great jokes first, ironed that out, and then they went out to so many different audiences to like sharpen that up before it, was that final product, on the special that you see. And they're really great at pulling off how conversational they sound, but they're really doing an hour-long monologue. It's crazy,
Could you imagine that process though? So you've written a notebook full of jokes on the whatever your special is going to be, the theme that you've got, and a lot of them are going to suck, like you were saying, your headlines. You need to throw out a lot of those headlines, so a lot of those jokes are going to get tossed. And then you decide to show up at a comedy club in Tulsa to test this stuff out, and it probably won't go real well at first, and just being able to have that thick skin to know that this is the process.
Yeah. I have so much respect for stand-up comedians that they have to like iron that out in front of a live audience. That's so brave and so hard. For the most part, when I'm ironing out our jokes for the Needling, it's like, well, we've got like this private group of people that helps us filter some of what we're putting out there, so that before thousands of people see it, like we've already gotten like a pretty good feel for, where it's at. And then even after that, if it bombs, if I can tell, it's like I can tell in like the first 5-10 minutes that something's posted.
Oh, really?
Like if it isn't getting a certain amount of likes in a certain amount of time, I'm like, something's wrong. Let's just forget it. I'm taking it down. And I have the power to just take it down. Never happened. We don't have to talk about that one anymore.
These are not the jokes you're looking for.
Like I said, often if we ever do pull something back, it's mostly just because it's like, well, whatever we thought the joke was, like people aren't getting it. So
right.
Yeah, forget it.
When we were talking on the phone, you mentioned, and I'd like to, well, for the listeners that this is new to them, but I'd like to revisit this with you, is each kind of the social channels acts differently. Mm-hmm. So how does Instagram how do you tell when you got a good one on Instagram? What's going on there? And how does Instagram act different than, say, Facebook?
I think it's like, honestly, it's like there's also like just like different personalities that kind of gravitate towards one, or the other. Like Twitter is like very like about the drama, Twitter can be very catty, so if you're slinging mud, people are into it. I'd say that our Instagram audience is like tends to be like, or people who are into Instagram in general, they tend to be more creative types. They tend to be a little bit more in touch with their emotions, not afraid of, that territory. So I think I think sometimes they interact with our stuff a little bit more, like, because I think if you're like a sensitive creative type, you do need, I think you like need comedy to get through life. Because I that might be a whole complex other issue, but just generalizing the audiences.
I kind of agree with you.
Yeah.
I'm looking at one, and I'm looking at it on Twitter, and I gotta go back. So the Needling retweeted a user by the name of Cat, and the retweet just said perfection, and then a quote: "At press time, the print shop had reportedly sold out of all remaining stock, was bought out by the Seattle Times editorial board." Mm-hmm. And this was for the 2-for-1 flash sale. How?
Wait, we got to say the whole headline, right? I don't think people are the
2-for-1 flash sale begins on "In This House We Believe" and "Recall Sawant" yard signs, hedging our bets, basically. How was let's help me out here? How was that received on the different platforms?
It was popular on on Instagram and Twitter. I'll say generally, like, we're also on Facebook. The Facebook audience trends a little bit older and a little bit more conservative. So sometimes, if things are like a little bit more like obviously like a more far left kind of headline, it's going to click more on like Twitter and, Instagram.
Okay.
But that was a popular one across the board, I think. Because I think, honestly, no matter like where you are on the political spectrum, something that's just like frustrating about Seattle is there's a lot of hypocrisy here. It's like pick a lane. Like if you're going to have a recall Sawant thing, take down that other stupid sign where you're all about kindness and, like la-di-da-di-da. Like, just take it down. Like, you got this all caps, like sign on one side of your lawn, and then this like, I believe in, like, oh my God, just stop being fake. Like, just stop being fake. Be who you are. Just own it. Own what you are.
You are in such a target-rich environment. And let's see. I'm reading some more. Let's see. So true, and so spot on. Seattle's a response. Spot on. These are, I just love the responses. Bouncing around here, going back to the gingerbread house with the construction delays for permits. There will also be a minimum of a 20-year study and hire the worst contractors as possible.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the fun is like, we put out a funny piece, and I love how people add on to it. It's almost like this improv exercise that happens on the internet. I love our comment sections and their retweets, because people often just make it like that much funnier. They just keep on, playing with the same joke. Yeah, and it gets even funnier. Yeah.
I mean, it's just... So who does your photoshopping?
Me.
You
I have a lot of fun with that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who boy, this multi-family gingerbread structure is going to have a hard time passing design review. I can hear it now. Well, there's red M&Ms.
And then there's red M&Ms. Yeah. And, something that's, kind of fun about, like a really good headline. Well, we obviously have some, political bias of our own. We trend, like left. I think with a really good headline, just, it doesn't matter like what walk of life, you're coming from. Like, it's just funny, and everyone knows it's funny.
So this one I saw a little while ago. How Melinda and Mackenzie announced new initiative to help women at risk of dating tech bros.
Yeah, that one was very popular.
That one. How did that one come? Work with me on this? How did you guys come up with that?
That came from one of our contributors, Kelly, and she I mean, I don't know. She just, it's funny. It's like we have like some contributors who are like regulars, and then we also just kind of leave space for some people to pop in and out, whenever they feel like it. So sometimes you won't hear from someone for 6 months, and then they're like, I got 5 really good ones. I think that's kind of her style, and that was one of her headlines. And it's funny. It's like you can always make fun of Amazon here, and you can always make fun of tech bros. And recently, I actually held off on publishing that one for a while because I was a little bit like, is it getting old making fun of tech bros? Because honestly, it's like as time goes on, like more and more of us just are working in tech. So it's like, how much are you going to make fun of people for working in tech? It's just kind of like the water we're swimming in as time goes on. But I teach like a real fake newsroom workshop for people who want to learn how to, write headlines and write articles. And in our most recent workshop, we had some guys they work in tech. And I asked them, are we too hard on tech bros? Does it get old making fun of tech bros? And even they were like, oh, no, go for it. Like, we get it. Like, all right, then. Full steam ahead.
Full steam ahead. Well, you offer a workshop on writing satirical headlines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's been fun. Yeah.
How did that come about? Is this, tell me about this. This sounds interesting, actually.
'Cause I mean, this is fun. Like writing headlines, writing the article, posting it, seeing people engage with it. Like it's addictive on its own. Like once you get the hang of it, it's just so fun. Okay. And there are other people who want to do it. And I get that because I wanted to do it. There's a certain point where like I wanted to do it, but like, do I want to like move to Chicago and network and try to get into the Onion? Because it's like, honestly, it's like for a long time, if you wanted to write satire, it's kind of like you needed to insert yourself in a certain comedy scene or writing scene. You got to move to Chicago or New York. And it's like, I don't want to. I don't want to do that. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of like, like obvious ways to like teach people or, create accessibility for writing satire and comedy. So I thought, I could run a workshop where I take people through a process. And so it's like, it's 3 weeks. And like the first week we work on like headline generation. And then the second week we work on the article. And the third week we work on like editing and pitching. Because they don't have to pitch their work to us. They can pitch it wherever. And there are, a growing number of satire websites out now because, anyone can start their own thing now,
Okay. Well, that's fascinating to me, actually. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Is there anything that's off limits in Seattle? Like you were saying, the whole tech bro thing, you're worried like, maybe we're, getting close to
it's like
wearing that one out, maybe.
Yeah.
Are there any areas that you have found that have like we just don't go there anymore, or just we don't go there because of any reason?
No. I mean, I think someone who is like into comedy in general is like a rebellious person, so like, I mean, you're not going to tell me I can't joke about something. So my attitude is like, I mean, I think you can joke about anything, but it is a test of how good you are at comedy, how you do it. Like it doesn't matter. It does matter how you do it. Like, are you pulling it off? And with difficult topics, that's always harder. So, it's a little bit more high stakes whenever you do that.
All right. Are you a fan of coffee? I mean, you live in Seattle now. I mean, okay. You kind of almost have, it's like everyone's in tech. Everyone has to drink coffee in Seattle.
There's so much good coffee. I try not to, I try to every now and then I do like coffee breaks. 'Cause I'm like, I'll bet caffeine isn't
No.
like that good for
No.
you.
That's
then it's so
quackery.
good.
You need to stop.
Yeah.
That's quackery. Stop. So where's a great place around the Seattle area for coffee for you?
I live in Ballard, so there's a bunch of great places in Ballard. So hard to pick. But like my first love is definitely Cafe Bambino. It's a cute little small cafe, and I realized like 2 years after going there that I brought, because like I love it so much that anytime I have visitors in Seattle, I'm like, we're going to Cafe Bambino, and my friends always end up like buying their beans, and I realized 2 years into it that like they have some like very unique way of like roasting their beans. I'm like, that makes sense because like there's a unique flavor here. Yeah.
Okay. And when you're drinking coffee, how do you drink your coffee? You just drinking black coffee, or are you drinking a latte with a splash of Splenda and stevia and
I have
oat
to
milk?
admit,
and,
I'm probably very easy to make fun of here, but like my go-to is definitely a lavender latte. Hemp milk, lavender latte. Very, I know that sounds very Seattle, but whatever. That's my thing. Because I can't eat dairy.
Okay.
And
okay.
hemp milk is the best alternative milk.
Alternative,
like for lattes, definitely nothing matches hemp milk. And and then at some point I just discovered like the combination of lavender and coffee is just like, oh my gosh, it like just gets me high. I love it.
Okay. Now, I'll be honest with you. I do not see myself consuming one of those in any time soon.
I love lavender. Okay. I love coffee. Them together.
Oh no, lavender's fine. Coffee's wonderful. I have nothing against hemp milk. It's just kind of I really enjoy like a straight shot of espresso, black coffee,
I can
French
do that
press.
too.
I really just like coffee,
yeah. If I have like a straight shot of espresso, I like to put a little honey. And
that's amazing. That's a great thing. Have you ever been to Mabel?
Yes, I live right nearby. Yeah.
Mabel is Mabel the like I really like the coffee that they serve there.
Yeah, I like them, and they have a really cute place. I have been thinking I might even, like write some Needling stuff in there now that, I don't know. It's like, I'm so confused about where to hang out casually. It's like, well, I have my booster. I don't know. Let's just do this thing now. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, is it easier to write, to be creative for you when you're in a semi-public space, like let's say a coffee shop, or do you do your best work, sitting in your office, hunkered down, listening to, whatever your soundtrack is that you listen to?
Both work. And I mean, especially during the pandemic, I had to be okay with doing that in my own place. But it was a little bit heartbreaking at the beginning of the pandemic because I think I grew up, like kind of fantasizing being that writer working in a cafe. And before the pandemic, there was like a little sweet period where it was like, yeah, I had a routine. I would go to like Diva Espresso, get my latte, sit down, put on a certain playlist, and it was like Pavlovian. It's like, it's writing time now. I loved that.
You trained yourself.
Yeah.
These were the cues that you had. I think I always love to hear what gets how people, especially people who are creative for a living.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you just trip on those things because, like, I didn't do that intentionally. I just realized at a certain point, it's like, oh, wow. Like, when I get my latte and I sit down in this place, it did help to, like, have cafes to go to. Because, like, what I love about a cafe is, like, you're not alone, So it's like you got kind of like this mix of stuff happening around you. But they're not coworkers, so they're not gonna like interrupt you. You know? Right. and you're trapped there. You know, it's not like at home where you're like, oh, I don't know, maybe I'll do the laundry now. Like, no, you're at the cafe. What we're doing now is we're sipping a latte and we're writing. That's it.
And the editor's not asking you to call the meteorologist to see if it's going to snow.
Exactly. Great callback.
So one of the things that, you know, is like I've read, and I don't enjoy his writing, but, you know, Stephen King is prolific. And I've heard, though, that, you know, he's very exceptionally disciplined in his daily content production. Have you ever read anything from Stephen Pressfield?
Yes. I think I did. Hey, check this out right here.
Yeah.
Right here.
The War of Art. Yeah. that guy, you know, it's, how do you do it? I mean, and I have yet to crack the code for me personally. That's why when you said you had a playlist and you're, you know, you just said it, it was like, oh, you've got it dialed in the sense, I've got my latte, I've got my laptop, I've got my playlist.
Yeah.
I go to
get
work.
a routine and then momentum. The beginning is always the hardest part. And then I was talking about this recently with a friend. I think consistent, like being a consistent creative or writer, like I know writing, that's my creativity. It is a little bit like, I imagine what it's like, you know, going to the gym consistently. Not that I would know, but you know, it's like, it's weird how sometimes you can take a break for writing. You're like, oh, that's so nice. I'm taking a break for writing. But getting back into writing sucks so much. Like getting your momentum back, like it sucks so much that honestly, it's like you reach a point where you're like, honestly, if this is my thing, it's easier to just do it every day because it sucks so much to lose your momentum. And yeah, like I said, like not that I would know about this and exercise, but I've heard that's how it's like. I've heard who that actually have a good habit of exercising. That's how it is.
I've heard that rumor too. You know, jogging, it's so easy once you get started. Yeah, no, I think that's.
But yeah, for even the most fit person I've heard, you know, if they're like, I'm taking a week off. You know, like even for them, getting back into it is just like.
Right. Well, it's like, you know, Seinfeld's credited with like having the calendar where you draw, you know, you make a chain and you don't want to break the chain.
I heard a podcast where he said he did not come up with that and he never did that.
Yeah, let's give him credit. Let's just, you know.
Someone made it up about him.
Yeah, it's a chain about nothing.
Yeah.
I don't know. So typically I like to ask guests, you know, like coffee, obviously, but like where to go for lunch or something in your neighborhood. But let me go back and, you know, ask you to rewind pre-COVID. What were some of the cafes you like to work at? I mean, can you give any shout outs to cafe, you know, places where were you working that you found, you know, obviously they had to have, you know, well, I don't want to know they had to, but they probably had coffee and some food of some sort.
Yeah.
So where were you going?
My favorite place to write was like, it's changed now. I haven't like reestablished like a cafe writing routine, but Diva Espresso in Greenwood was a very like cozy place to settle in.
Yep.
And then by Green Lake, there's this place called Retreat. And I think at some point I stopped going there as much because like people discovered it and it was very crowded, but there was a sweet spot time where people didn't know how amazing it was.
Okay. So if people want to, and they should, find the Needling, where do you recommend? And I'll put some links in the show notes too, but where should people go and find the Needling?
So we, you know, it depends on how you like to, you know, get content, but we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter and Facebook. The handle is @the_Needling. And we also have a newsletter if you prefer to, if you're not into social media, but still want to see what our recent headlines are, you can sign up for a newsletter on our website, theneedling.com.
One question I didn't ask, and this is totally remiss of me, because I think it works on a lot of levels. Who came up with the Needling, and what was that process? Because it actually, I just realized it worked on another level as I was formulating it right before I said it. I'm like, oh, it works on yet another level. So who came up with that, and how did you and how did that happen?
I came up with that, and when I was coming up with a name for this, I thought, well, I want it to be really obvious this is a thing for Seattle, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So naturally you start thinking of the Space Needle because that's the most iconic, you know, piece of our city. And I was like, well, I want to stay away from like things that have probably already been, you know, like used, like, you know, the needle, the Space Needle, like, because there's probably all kinds of businesses that have had, you know, puns on that and stuff. And I thought the needling works because it is a double meaning. Well, a little bit. It's like the first primary meaning is that it's to needle someone is to tease them, to kid them.
Right.
And obviously it also incorporates the needle, you know, Space Needle. And we've got that in our, you can't really see it, I think, on social media all the time, but on our main website banner, the L in the needling is a Space Needle that's tilted.
Right.
Yeah.
But also pine/fir needles.
Yeah. I think it works on a bunch of different levels. It's like,
that was the one that just kind of clicked.
Yeah.
That was the third layer for me. It's like, oh wait, it is a brilliant name, actually. It really is a brilliant.
Yeah, we've got like the trees in our logo, so it's like, it gives you a whole feel for where we live. Yeah.
Right. I think that's awesome. So my standard get out of jail free question at the end is, what didn't I ask you that I should have?
Let's see. I always draw a blank on that stuff. I really don't know. I mean, one thing I guess I'll just plug is, I mean, in January, and we do our Real Fake Newsroom workshop on a monthly basis, and it's it's usually a pretty like cozy group of about like 10 to 15 people. So yeah, if you're interested in coming up with headlines and workshopping some material and learning how to narrow down some good stuff, you can join us for one of those workshops.
And where can people find out more about that?
If you go to our website under the About section, we have a thing about our Real Fake Newsroom workshop.
Your Real Fake Newsroom.
Yeah.
So do you have real fake editors, and you know?
Yeah, well, I'm the real fake editor. Yeah.
Are you gonna make them call the meteorologist to see if it's snowing?
No. I would never do that to anyone.
It would be more fun to keep calling him to ask him when it's going to be sunny.
Yeah, that is what it should be.
Yeah, it's less likely that is. Well, Lex, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun, and I think what you guys are doing is entertaining, and I'm glad Mackenzie stumbled upon it before I did, so I got to give her all the credit. But I think what you guys are doing is really, really quite humorous, and it will now be bookmarked and regularly consumed. I might just do the newsletter just to keep off the social channels.
Yeah, because I totally respect people not really wanting to be on social for your mental health or whatever. So, you know, for that, we're also, newsletter and the website. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, it was fun being here.
Join us next time for another episode of the Exploring Washington State podcast.